Hello, fellow fish nerds, and happy Water Change Wednesday to you. Last week for spring break, my family and I went to Disney. Although I'm not a fan of Disney, that's a whole nother video and rant, and I'm not going to get into it right now. I do enjoy Epcot. I know a lot of people think it's the most boring park, but I enjoy Epcot because of all of the nature settings, especially in April during the International Plant Festival or show. And check out that sturgeon, by the way. Look how brightly and boldly colored it is, especially under the red lighting. Anyways, don't enjoy Disney, but Epcot is cool because of this ride. I don't know why Disney calls things a ride. They aren't really rides, in my opinion. I mean, I guess you are riding on something, but that's another rant for another video. But the Living with the Land ride is really cool, especially the aquaponics section. Obviously, those fish nerds like us, like me, do find this interesting. Look at those shell and catfish; they look super tasty. Um, but the Living with the Land ride kind of re-inspired me to try aquaponics again. I tried it last summer. I failed miserably with strawberries. I didn't get any video of it, not because I failed, but because I didn't have the time last summer. But going to Disney and Epcot right before Summer Tubbin season begins kind of re-inspired me and ignited the inspiration inside of me to try it again. So this week's video is about me getting things set up to test out, to try out aquaponics and summer tubbing, but to try it out first indoors before the summer tubbing begins. Stay tuned, I'll see you on the other side. It's Mr. Science Geek. I hope my tanks don't leak. If it's information that you seek, and my videos take a peek, be sure to tune in each week. My singing and my jokes really reek. One of the seeds I chose to get is spinach. The other is butter crunch or sweet butter, whatever, lettuce, and a salad mix of lettuce. I chose these two because first off, I like to eat them. My Playco's like to eat them. I put them in the coconut fiber here. You see the little pink spots. That's how the two types of lettuces came in the seeds. So easy to see, I guess. I use water from out of my fish tank to keep them sprayed down. But anyways, I chose lettuce and spinach because they don't get too top heavy. They won't topple over. Was the other reason, and they're a cooler weather crop that I can start earlier. So I honestly had these planter cups laying around from last summer. I didn't use them, but I hope to use them this year. So one of the first things I need to do is measure the diameter across, which I could have just looked it up on Amazon. Turns out it is 3 inches, but hey, use the tape measure on my keychain. Works just fine. This way I'm sure of it as well. So I can go find the correct size hole saw at Home Depot. So while we're waiting for the seeds to sprout, we go to Home Depot. And the aisle you find them in is the power tool aisle with the circular saws, etc. But no, just my luck, the aisle was closed. Luckily, I was able to talk to the nice guy. I got in there. I found them. I found the right size for this cup. The right size is 2 3/4 inches. I know I said it was 3 inches, but I wanted to fit snugly so it doesn't fall out. Then I really wanted to get the foam board, which is found in the building materials aisle. This foam board right here is obviously way too big to fit in my car with my son in there as well. So this is too big, also way crazy, way too expensive. This is too thin and too expensive as well. So it's kind of like Goldilocks syndrome. And finally, we find the foam board I'm looking for. This one is just right. It's also only $5, so it's a pretty good sized sheet. It will fit nicely in my 10-gallon fish tanks and possibly even a 20-gallon long. So here we go. Let's check it out. So here we have one of my 10-gallon aquariums, and I know that it's a standard size, but I want the inner dimensions for the foam to float in the top and have a little bit of wiggle room to move around, to be able to feed the fish, to be able to maintain the tank, etc. And so the width, the interior width, so I can nicely fit in, is 8.5 inches that I want to cut it to width-wise. Sorry, it didn't focus well. And the length-wise is 16 inches. So that I know it goes further back. Well, like I said, I want to have room to be able to access and feed the fish and for it to move around so that it can still get I can still get into the tank as well. These are my full red albino guppies, by the way. Here we have some standard white packing styrofoam. These were used in shipping of guppies that I got shipped to me. Nothing fancy, but I'll go ahead and save you a bunch of time and effort and frustration. What I learned from this was that I'm not going to use these. It's too thin. It would break apart under the weight of the clay pellets and the cups and the plants and everything. Also, when it was all said and done, the little pieces of styrofoam I was afraid would go into the tubs in the fish tank, and the fish would ingest them and become harmed, and it would kill them possibly. So I decided to fast forward through all this to save you the bad camera work, and hopefully you learn from my mistakes and just don't use this stuff. Use the thicker purple stuff that, like what I showed you earlier on in the video, that I got from Home Depot. So do not use this white styrofoam stuff. After multiple attempts to get the hole saw attached onto my hole saw bit correctly, because this is not the right uh, hole saw blade that came with the hole saw bit. After multiple attempts with that, it was loose, it didn't work. I finally got it to work. I finally tightened it with a wrench. That was the key. Learn from mistakes. Also, I learned in this mistake here that I had to remove the old styrofoam before, or the old foam before I went on to the next circle. Also, you'll see the pen marks on the purple foam. I tried to mark it out and measure it, but I found out that I just did better with just eyeing it and going along and cutting out the circles just by sighting it. I apologize for the mess on my workbench. I actually do, for the most part, kind of somewhat slightly straighten up between projects, but I don't always all the way clean it up very often. This was kind of frustrating to have to remove the old foam in between every hole drilled. That was pretty frustrating, but whatever. Also, do as I say, not as I do. You'll notice a few times I put my thumb right under it, but this is a hole saw bit. It doesn't go that fast. It's going through foam. Um, it did catch my finger one time. It didn't even break the skin. But you do notice sometimes I do move my thumb out of the way to hold it in place. I was trying to work as safely as possible, but please, people, just work safely. Also, I recommend you use ear protection because honestly, the sound of styrofoam is just absolutely obnoxious. Eye protection as well because the styrofoam dust is uh, very light and it gets in the air very easily. Also, when you're done, I recommend using a shop vac to clean up the foam dust particles. Finally, I'm making the final hole right here. Once again, I finally moved my thumb out of the way and made the final drill and then cleaned it up and ready to move on to the next step. Here we have the final completed project before the cleanup. So after you get all the foam dust particles cleaned out, this is what it looks like. Testing out the fitting of the grow cup. It fits nice and snug. That's why I went with the 2 3/4 instead of the full 3-inch hole saw. Then I go through with the cup and try to get the styrofoam junk out of there with the edges of the cup, kind of like slice it out of there. Then I go through and sand the edges and sand as best I can to get the remaining foam particles out to keep the fish as safe as possible, and it looks nicer and feels nicer as well. And this is what it looks like in the end after all the cleaning. This is a prototype. It didn't really work out well. I'm thinking about trying solo cups as a thing. It's about the same size and they're way cheaper than these actual aquaponics grow cups. Just put some slits in the bottom and maybe cut off the excess top, or just extra space for growing the plants. Just a thought I might try out. Here's kind of a hint of a coming attraction. Here is a preview for an upcoming video of the aquaponics build, so stay tuned for that. Here is the finished product. You see I have some room to be able to feed the fish. There are some panda guppies. There's also room to be able to get into the overflow for the automatic water change system. Some room on the side to be able to feed the fish or maintain the tank if needed. Obviously there aren't any plants in here yet, but that will be coming soon. Just waiting for the plants to grow. Obviously the lights have to be above it so they aren't touching. That will also tell me when it's time to harvest the plants when they get to be about 6 inches. Hope you enjoyed that. Found it informative. So until next time, stay tuned and stay fishy, people.